Well, that's two Sundays in a row. We've needed to do a Sunday special, but this one is as a result of you guys. You have reached out multiple times now and asked me to take a look at Canada's seniors and how Canada's seniors are treated in this country. And let's be really clear about something right now, right out of the gate on this episode. Canada loves to pat itself on the back about world class social programs and dignified retirement. It's something we hear about on a regular basis from this government. But if you're an average senior in Canada in 2025, not a well connected former Liberal adjacent Nortel executive with a gold plated taxpayer subsidized pension, I'm not talking about you guys. If you're one of the others, life is not dignified. It's a grind. It's stressful, and it's getting worse, not better. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things. It's the weekend wrap. It's a Sunday special. Yes, we are here on a Sunday again because the news cycle that on things that are not being reported in Canada is just as busy as the one the mainstream media is making up as it goes. And so we are back here on a Sunday to do this special today on elder abuse and being a senior in Canada, which was an email that I received and then received a subsequent maybe 5 to 10 additional emails about this saying, please, Chris, take a look into what it's like to be a senior in this country. And boy, oh boy, what we found was rampant elder abuse by this government and rampant senior abuse by this government. Welcome back. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, comment. We tell people to work hard, pay into CPP for 40 years, trust our system, and then at 65, what do they get? Well, they get to stand in the same food bank line as struggling students and working families, watching their so-called retirement income system completely evaporate right in front of their eyes at a Loblaws checkout. Food Banks Canada recorded over 2 million visits in a single month in March, nearly double what it was just 5 years ago. Driven by inflation, housing costs, and insufficient social supports, you don't get 2 million food bank visits in a rich country unless a lot of seniors are quietly staying and starving in the shadows. And that is what we are exposing here today. So let's talk about the numbers, because this is where the fairy tale of the Liberal government really falls apart. In 2025, the maximum CPP retirement pension at 65 is about $1,433 a month if you were lucky enough to contribute the maximum pretty much every year of your working life. Most people, by the way, don't. So the average for new CPP retirees is under $850 a month. Let that one sink in. Old age security, the universal senior benefit, is roughly $740 a month for people 65 to 74 and $814 a month for those 75 and over. If you're really struggling and your income is low enough, the guaranteed income supplement then may kick in, and it can add up to around $1,100 a month for a single senior. So, in the absolute best case unicorn senior scenario, not the Nortel executive, of course, a low-income senior with a full OAS and full GIS might scrape together something in the range of $1,800 to $2,000 a month before tax. Now, if they happen to have above average CPP, maybe they get closer to $2,500, there's an option there. But remember, the average CPP is nowhere near the maximum, and not everybody qualifies for full OAS or full GIS. So most real people are living well below those top numbers we just shared. So let's put that up against costs in 2025, shall we? Back in 1990, the average rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Canada was about $531 a month. By 2024, the average two-bedroom rent in the purpose-built rental market had exploded to about $1,447 a month. That's almost triple what it was in 1990. Meanwhile, if you look at overall inflation, $100 in 1990 has the same purchasing power as about $206 in 2025. Prices have roughly doubled on everything since then. So here's the punchline. Rents up nearly 3 times, general prices are up nearly 2 times, and public pensions like CPP and OAS are indexed only to general inflation. They creep up with CPI, but The thing seniors can't avoid, shelter, has blown straight past inflation, way past inflation. That means the very programs that Ottawa brags about in the news, indexed to protect seniors, are mathematically designed to fall behind the actual bills. In the early 1990s, you still had plenty of seniors living close to the line. There's no question about that. But the trajectory was improving. Seniors' poverty dropped dramatically from the 1970s to the mid 1990s under one widely used low income measure. The senior poverty rate fell to around 4% by 1995, which was actually the last time it was at an all time low. That was the payoff of building the CPP, expanding the OAS, and giving out GIS as well. Canadians weren't literally destitute, which is where they are now. If you were a senior then, your OAS and a modest CPP and maybe a small workplace pension actually put a serious dent in your rent and your grocery bill at the time. Housing was way cheaper. Rents were lower. And the system wasn't perfect, but for a lot of people, it worked a lot better than you could ever say it works today. So fast forward to today, and the National Advisory Council on Poverty points out that seniors' poverty fell from 7.1% in 2016 to 3.1% in 2020, but that trend has reversed since then. By 2023, seniors' poverty had already climbed back to 5%. A Maytree report estimates roughly 430,000 seniors were still living below Canada's official poverty line in 2022. And remember, those are national averages. In cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, that same analysis shows that even a senior who gets the full OAS and GIS package is still considered in poverty once you factor in local housing costs in those centers. So yes, the raw poverty rate for seniors is technically lower in this country than it was in the 1970s, but standing at a food bank line, or standing in a food bank line, I should say, in 2025, doesn't feel better just because a spreadsheet in Ottawa says we've made some progress since the 70s. The system was designed for a world where housing was actually affordable, and that world is long gone. It's the same story on shelter affordability. The OECD notes that the share of affordable rental units, that's what they're really focusing on here, housing where shelter costs are less than 30% of income, is low and shrinking for low-income households. And in big cities like Vancouver, Ottawa, and Toronto, the stock of affordable units for low-income renters is close to zero. So how is a senior supposed to live? If your entire income is CPP, OAS, and maybe a sliver of GIS, you're the definition of low-income renter. You don't have margin to play with. You have a countdown clock to eviction. That's what you have. Imagine in your 80s possibly being evicted. And we haven't even touched healthcare yet. In 1993, Canadians waited about 9.3 weeks on average between a general physician referral and an actual receiving of treatment for whatever the ailment might be. By 2024, that median wait time has now blown it out of the water to 30 weeks, more than triple, a 222% increase. Who lives in the waiting rooms more than seniors? Nobody. Who is more affected when hip replacement waits blow out to 33 weeks or diagnostic tests get pushed back months down the road? Nobody. It's the seniors. The answer is the same people politicians love to roll out for photo ops on National Seniors Day, and then forget the other 364 days of the year. Now layer in all of this with the digital world that we've built all around our seniors and basically told seniors, here's all the technology, good luck. StatsCan shows that internet use among Canadians overall hit 95% back in 2022. The biggest jump was among people 75 and over. Their internet use went from 62% in 2020 to 72% in 2022. That sounds impressive until you realize they're still the least connected group in a society that assumes absolutely everything happens online now. A federal report on seniors and internet use notes that even before the pandemic, seniors' internet use lagged far behind younger adults, 32% to 68% between 2007 and 2016, while younger groups were already at near universal usage. Another stressor for our seniors in Canada to live under. Meanwhile, research in 2025 on digital skills training for older adults says that there are serious gaps. Programs are scattered, short term, and often they're not even accessible to a more marginalized or lower income senior, those who probably need them the most. The translation with all of that, we've made life digital by default for seniors. We shove banking and government services and even bus passes online, and then we toss grandma an iPad and say, go to town. But that doesn't mean she knows how. And when seniors do try to navigate the tech maze, they're doing it while fighting ageism. An Ipsos survey for the Canadian Coalition Against Ageism in 2024 actually found that while over half of Canadians say they've heard of ageism, 87% don't really grasp how widespread it actually is in Canada, even though ageist attitudes are common globally around the world. In British Columbia, a survey of more than 9,000 people found that 84% believe ageism is an issue in that province, and 54% said they've been directly affected by it. In healthcare, work, finances, social life, and media, of course. Seniors aren't imagining what they're seeing. It's real. They are literally telling us the country has a respect problem for our elders. This is where the generational story gets really, really ugly. This is where the research really dug in, and it's ugly, folks. You'd think with all this stress, we'd have built a culture where adult kids rally around their aging parents. I mean, look at all the change they have to deal with. But in reality, Canada is quietly running a massive unpaid elder care system behind closed doors while pretending that none of this problem exists. Did you know that 1 in 4 Canadians is already a caregiver? They provide something like 5.7 billion hours of unpaid care each and every year, equivalent to about 4% of our entire GDP. Valued around $97 billion annually. Almost half of those caregivers are looking after a parent or parent-in-law. Among caregivers aged 45 to 64, about 61% are caring for parents. That's crazy. The 2025 federal brief says Canada is facing a caregiving crisis for older adults and notes that a growing number of caregivers, including people over 65 themselves, are socially isolated, burned out, and in poor mental and physical health. At the same time, multi-generational households are rising. In 2021, there were more than 442,000 multi-generational households in Canada, home to 2.4 million people, about 6.4% of our population, and they've grown over 20% in just a decade. A 2025 report shows more than a third of Canadians aged 50 to 54 now live in intergenerational households, mostly as parents living with their adult children. Now, you might say kudos to the children for taking them in, but imagine that you can't even live on your own now here. So on one hand, you have a generation of kids living at home into their late 20s and 30s, unable to afford the same launch into adulthood that their parents had. On the other hand, you now have parents quietly taking on caregiver roles for their own aging parents themselves, or bracing for it. The policy fantasy in Ottawa is that families will just absorb all of this out of love, while governments keep throwing money at shiny climate announcements, diversity photo ops, foreign aid, and foreign worker strategies and press conferences. And into all of this mess, we toss seniors who don't have kids, whose kids, I should say, are struggling themselves, or whose family relationships are fractured. What's the plan for all of them? They don't have intergenerational housing options. For a growing number, the plan is place in a long-term care eventually, if they survive the waiting list. In BC, there were about 6,500 people waiting for a publicly subsidized long-term care bed in just 2024. A 150% increase in just 5 years. Across the country, the long-term care sector is full, understaffed, and straining itself. The median wait time to get into care is measured in months now across Canada. Across Canada, not days. Meanwhile, the political class stands at a podium and congratulates itself for strengthening retirement security because CPP enhancement phases in over 40 years and OAS got a small bump at 75. They also pat themselves on the back for international spending while they don't spend on our seniors. Let me stress this again. We are not talking about the liberal friendly retiree with a defined benefit public sector pension that pays more than the average working Canadian even earns. Those are liberals. We're not talking about the ex-Nortel or Bay Street executive who cashed out stock options, moved the assets offshore, Carney, and now spends retirement writing op-eds about how we all need to sacrifice just a little bit more. Carney. Those folks will be fine in any system. They are the system, and that's our problem. They don't see this problem, and they don't believe it's a problem. We are talking about the retired mechanic, the widowed grocery worker, the immigrant grandmother who did childcare and cleaning her whole entire life, the small town couple whose RRSPs vanished in a market crash and who are now staring down pharmacy bills that eat their entire set of grocery dollars. We are talking about seniors whose reward for paying into this country for 40 or 50 years is to be told politely that they should age in place in a rental market that doesn't want them, a health system that can't see them in time, and a digital economy that barely notices that they exist. So, what would it look like if Canada actually cared about its seniors again? What would it look like to get back, not to some perfect golden age, but at least to the 1990s baseline where public pensions, family support, and social respect actually meant something in Canada? Well, first, we would stop pretending that CPI indexation is enough. If housing is the main thing crushing seniors, then benefits that serve seniors have to be tied to housing reality, not just an average price basket. That means boosting the GIS and restructuring it so that in high cost cities, it actually pulls seniors above the poverty line after rent is paid, not just into a slightly more comfortable poverty. It also means exploring a targeted permanent Canada seniors housing benefit for low and middle income seniors who rent, especially in markets where affordable units have essentially vanished. You might say, Chris, well, that's spending on seniors. That's more spending. You're a conservative. Why would you support that? Because seniors spend into our economy. It grows the economy. Second, we need a real national caregiving strategy with money behind it, not just a glossy PDF. The caregiving sector itself is screaming that a perfect storm is brewing in this country as unpaid caregivers are pushed past their breaking point. That means tax credits that actually reflect the real cost of caregiving, direct income supports for people who give up work hours to care for parents, respite services, and serious expansion of home care so that seniors can stay in their homes longer than they have before while their kids are burning out. Third, if we're going to make everything digital in this country, which it seems with AI, it's about to get even worse, then digital literacy and tech support for seniors has to be treated like infrastructure now in this country, not charity. Community programs that provide devices, data plans, and one-on-one coaching are already popping up across the country, but they're all private, and they're small, and they're patchwork at best. The federal and provincial governments could easily scale these up and integrate them into libraries, senior centers, and primary care clinics. It is absurd that you need to have the internet to apply for programs that supposedly exist to help the people least likely to be online. It's beyond crazy in this country. Fourth, we have to take ageism seriously again in this country, not as a buzzword, but as discrimination that has real economic and health impacts. It is truly elder abuse. Surveys are telling us clearly the majority of people think ageism is a problem. More than half say they've experienced it themselves, and many seniors can point to specific examples in healthcare, employment, and media where they've experienced this. That should translate into enforcement in hiring and firing practices, clear accountability in healthcare settings when age is used as a triage shortcut, and a media environment that doesn't treat seniors as either helpless props or selfish obstacles. That's what we need to fix. Finally, we need to stop talking about seniors only in the context of the fact that they cost us money and start talking about them as the people whose sacrifices built this damn country. They did. We're now mismanaging the country they built. The same generation we're telling to tighten their belts now and sacrifice more is the one that paid the taxes that built the hospitals, the roads, the schools, and universities we take for granted. If you wouldn't walk up to a veteran firefighter with lung damage and tell them, sorry, your benefits are getting a haircut because your grandkids want cheaper tuition, then you shouldn't be comfortable building a budget like we just saw that quietly does the exact same thing, but on a national scale. It's the truth. We just speak the truth here. If you're over 65 and you're living this in real time, none of this is news to you. I know that. You've already done the math. You already know exactly how many days of groceries one pharmacy bill costs. You already know where the cheapest bus pass is. You already know or have sat on a wait list that feels like forever. If you're under 65, understand this. This is not just a story about them. This is the pilot episode of your future. Those CPP statements in your inbox, they're promises made by the same political class that tells seniors today, don't worry, everything's fine, just be good with sacrificing for a bit. While the local food bank parking lot is full of walkers and mobility scooters. Canada could make different choices. We could decide that no senior who worked their entire life for this country will be pushed below the poverty line by rent. We could decide that no one will wait half a year for basic treatment while being told the system is world class. We could decide that aging in place means aging with support and dignity, not just aging alone behind a locked apartment door trying to remember yet another password for your banking. The only reason we don't is political will. The Liberal government. That's the way it's been for the last decade. So the next time a politician shows up in front of a room full of seniors, smiling over a coffee and announcing a $30 top-up or a new age-friendly working group, ask them one simple question, whether you're a senior now or caring for a senior. If these programs are so great, why are so many of the people who built this country standing in food bank lines, selling their houses, or rationing pills in 2025 just to get by? Because until they can answer that question honestly, all the talk about respecting our elders is just really that, all talk. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things. This is the Sunday special of the Weekend Wrap. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, join the conversation down below. What elder abuse are you seeing? What are you seeing our seniors go through? Are you a senior going through it? We want to hear your story in the comments down below. Please don't be shy about it. We have to start talking about what this country is doing to our senior citizens. Thanks for watching. Of course, again, we will be back with the first sip on Monday morning. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you Monday.